everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Stash Report from the Stash Project. Today is January 20th, 2020. For those of us fortunate to have a 3-day weekend, hope you're enjoying it. I am not so fortunate. Kids had a 4-day weekend. Aren't they lucky? We have a few kit announcements to go through, and then we have a few kit releases to go through. And all in all, flashiness aside, the I just noticed that in the corner of my eye, I see my screen blinking. There it goes again. See? Yes. Fantastic. Can't decide what light source it wants to focus on. That's fantastic. So anyway, let's try to plow through this before everyone suffers some sort of epileptic fit. KA Models. Now, KA Models probably best known for their photo etch and things like that. They make a resin photo etch conversion actually for the Italy Protar Academy Revell of Germany Mercedes S500 sedan. It's actually, I think, Protar's tooling, and then everybody else and their third cousin's mother has run it in the time being. They are going to do their first, what I believe to be their first own injected molded kit. It is going to be a Mazda K360, which is a little three-wheeled sort of utility pickup truck thing. Very tiny, very K-car type thing. They produced them between 1959 and 1969, and they produced 280,000 of them in Japan and elsewhere in Asia. So it was a relatively popular car, especially considering the time period, 1959, 1960s. The cars were not really cars in Japan at that point. You think of things like the Honda N360 and the Subaru 360. They were very small, very commuter cars, and a lot of things were things like this three-wheeled cart. It's a curbside, although it does appear to have at least some engine detail to it. It's sort of an engine plate type of deal. Looks like a very interesting kit just from the general principles of it being such an odd subject matter. It is quite a number of parts for being a very small thing. I think the closest type of vehicle that I can think of would be sort of like the little Daihatsu Midget, except the Daihatsu Midget, isn't a three-wheeled cart. So it's very interesting subject matter, very interesting choice for their first model, and that should be coming out in February. Over in March, Academy, the guys out of Korea that probably most people know best for their armor and aircraft. They've done some automotive things. Most of their automotive tooling is rerunning other people's tools. They've run a version of that Mercedes we were just talking about. They've run a number of other pieces of Italy tooling over the years. They've also done a few Hyundais along the line. Most recent one they did was the Hyundai Grandeur, Hyundai Azera. Now, Grandeur or Azera, depending on what country you were in. The Azera was nominally the one we got here. It came with left-hand drive. The Grandeur is a right-hand drive home market vehicle. They are going to, in March, release a kit of a 2018 Hyundai Santa Fe, the sort of now mid-sized crossover SUV that Hyundai makes. They've added a larger vehicle since then to their lineup. I think the Hyundai is the I'm trying to think. There's a Palisade and there's something else. I'm trying to think if the Kia. I think the Palisade is the Kia, and then there's a Hyundai version of it. But at any rate, it's basically an unassembled promotional model. These vehicles that Hyundai has had Academy make for them are basically promos that they then went on to sell as model kits. This is sort of the same thing. This Hyundai Santa Fe, though, is going to be left-hand drive straight out of the gate, so that's kind of an interesting choice if you wanted a more mundane, regular parking lot, if you will, modern car kit. That's going to be coming along. And then we have the Aoshima releases for April of 2020. So this will pretty much be some of the last of their kits that we're going to hear about prior to this Shizuoka Model and Hobby Show. And there are reissues primarily. Well, they're all reissues, but there's two here at the very end that'll be a little bit different. The rest of these are just sort of restocks. And they are the 1972 Toyota Celica 1600 GT, the 1991 Suzuki Cappuccino, the 1982 Nissan Gloria 280 hardtop, Cedric Gloria, that's the one you can, has parts to build either way, but pick one or the other. 1982 Toyota AA6 Cherno Nuremberg 2 body kit. The 2010 Toyota Hiace boxy style, so VIP van. And then the fifth car in their new supercar lineup is going to be a reissue of the 1999 Lamborghini Diablo GT. And then that also has its own PE set that they made for it. So that'll be available separately. Now, the two things that are a little different for this month would be the Honda Mugen AA City Turbo Silhouette. So apparently back in the day, I was not aware of this, but then I'm not really that in-depth on the support series that ran with some of the other Japanese racing series. Apparently there was a single make Honda AA City, which is a tiny little K car. You may, I believe that Tamiya did a kit of this, which is kind of very basic curbside, and then Aoshima also did one as well. They also did apparently some point in the past. I've never seen this kit before, but it's a reissue, obviously, of this single make silhouette race series. Now the car basically has a bunch of sort of over fenders to it, and it's a race car, and it's going to come with at least one livery in it, I guess, as far as what's going on, because they show a real race car on the box art. And then, of course, there are a number of turbo silhouettes following along behind it. So it's very interesting, very unique piece of Japanese racing history, I guess. It would be the best way to think of it. And that kit itself, I don't think has been released that way since maybe the 1990s, perhaps the 1980s. I'd have to go look that up. It's certainly something that was something I didn't know they made. It was not something I was aware of, I guess. And then the other thing from them in April of 2020 is going to be another reissue of the 2017 Honda NTP10 Japanese Taxi. This time it's being done as what they're calling a checker cab, and it is the Yamasan motor cars from Tokyo. It does have a sort of a checkerboard pattern going down the side in a stripe that's maybe about this thick in real life. And so that's a checker cab to them. So again, just another reissue of that taxi. This is going to have, again, probably another maybe one or two runners of new parts, because the little taxi light is a different style. They're calling it a rugby light, and it does sort of kind of look like a rugby football. And there's some other lighting pieces that are specific to this specific Tokyo taxi company. So as we had told you before, I was pretty sure that this was not the last we would hear of these Japanese taxis, and turns out I was correct. There's one domestic announcement. Salvino has announced their most recent kit that they're going to be producing. I expect this will be a February release because it is available for pre-order right now, and it is this. The Richard Petty 1983 Pontiac Grand Prix, his winning car from Talladega that year. The guys at Salvino's are making a big deal of the fact that this is the first time that the STP Texas Jeans sponsorship has been available on one decal sheet and a commercially made kit. Apparently there's aftermarket versions of this car, but this will be the first model kit that comes with both those sponsorships in one box. This, of course, is the monogram Grand Prix tooling, so you should have a basic general gist of what to expect from that, because this is, well, it's a model kit that's been around since the 1980s, but this is, of course, another monogram kit. They do have a 2+2 body planned, probably for the guts of this kit in specific, but that's going to be something coming down the line. This is just a reissue, basically, of that monogram kit with some new decals included. So for Richard Petty fans, there's another one of those coming along. And guys, that'll take us to kit releases. It's all overseas this week. 2 kits out of Aoshima. They're both just restocks. First up, you have this. I'm trying to think if they have a year on this or not. Let me see. 77 Toyota Celica Liftback 2000 GT. This is basically the other kit that pairs with the 72 that we just talked about. It's going to get reissued in April. This is a hatchback LB liftback version of that curbside kit. It's not the greatest thing in the world. I'd love to see Hasegawa modify or do some extended tooling on their Celica to do a liftback version of it, just because I think that would be a nice complement to their existing 1600 GT Celica. And I'm a big fan of these Aoshima kits. They're old motorized kits. And then the other one is this, the reissue of the 1975 Nissan Fairlady Z Aero Custom. What can you say about it at this point? It's been reissued at least every 9 months since we've been doing the show for the last 5.5 years, so there's that. And then going over to Hasegawa, we have a couple of rally kits that are being reissued. First up, you have this. It is the 1993 Acropolis Rally Repsol liveried Lancia Super Delta. This car would represent your second place finishing car in the 1993 Acropolis Rally. Otherwise, it's a straight reissue. The livery has been done before. And then the other kit would be this. It is a 1991 Swedish Rally Subaru Legacy RS rally car. And this will give you the third place finishing car for the Swedish Rally. The other cars that Subaru entered had some more famous drivers in them, but they did not finish the race. Had mechanical issues, and this was I think I had 2 of the 4 finished, if I remember what I looked at, and this was the highest placed one in third. So podium, nothing to be ashamed of there. But that kit is back out there for fans of, I guess, earlier rallies. It's not really too terribly early in 1990s. It's not classic 70s or anything else like that. But guys, that pretty much wraps it up. There's nothing to rant and rave about Revell this week, thankfully. But I did, just on the outro here, just wanted to pause it rather, sort of a question to you guys, because I've saw it pop up here recently with another manufacturer with another kit that we've been waiting on for quite a while, that looks like maybe will actually come out next week, or maybe by the end of the month anyway. And that was the fact that this company put out just a Facebook post with one of their other kits that they've released recently, and everyone, of course, in the comments piled on them wanting to know when this, the next kit basically was supposed to come out. And I thought that was kind of an interesting juxtaposition, that the model companies seem to be stuck in a position where there's no winning. Right? If you announce the kits and you say that the kits are going to come hopefully in this month, give whatever it may be, and you miss the release date, everyone loses their shit and goes crazy and throws a fit about the fact that they aren't out on time. And then the other side of that, you have your companies like Tamiya and, of course, Revell, Mobius, and other companies that don't, constantly update, their kits a lot of times. Obviously, Revell, even with, the kits, all the kits they have to reissue, they're not pushing out 8-10 kits a month the way the Asian companies do when they restock the suppliers. And, they're what Revell, even Revell prior to the bankruptcy, was putting out 2-3 new tools a year, and then maybe 1 or 2 significantly modified reissues, and everything else was just sort of field filler restocks of stuff that had last been sold in retail stores 8-10 years ago. Like those companies, because we've been pretty fortunate with Tamiya here recently. Tamiya has been giving us 1 to 2 new tool automotive kits a year, and then a couple of reissues along the way. And not the disaster reissues like the 787B, where Japan got it but nobody else did, or the 112 scale 934 Porsche Jägermeister car, where Europe and North America got it but nobody in Japan did, where they haven't made nearly enough kits to satisfy the demand. So I really don't even see what the point of reissuing it is. It just pissed a bunch of people off on one side of the Pacific Ocean or the other. But there was a point in time where, and people who've been a fan of the show for a long time, we're going all the way back 5 years ago, would remember where we would talk about, well, we've had a couple of new kits from Tamiya this year, so next year is going to be an IPMS year, and we shouldn't expect any automotive tools. And that held true pretty much from the early 20-teens all the way probably to 2015, 2016, where if you got a couple of automotive tools, you didn't get any automotive tools the next year. You might get a reissue of something that existed, like a Citroen 2CV or one of the 80s, 90s RX-7s or something along those lines, where they would just reissue a kit that hadn't been out for a while just to sort of give you something. But most of the new tooling was focused on boats or planes or tanks or whatever the IPMS du jour was that year. In the last 2 to 3 years, we have really gotten quite a few kits. So you've gotten, the new Ford GT, the new Acura NSX, the new Toyota Supra. You've gotten the new MX-5 Miata. Oh, technically, it's not a Miata anymore. And then you have the new tool TSO50 and the new tool AMG GT3. And then you had a reissue of that TSO50 with this year's Le Mans livery, the reissue of the AMG GT3 with the Super GT logo, or the Super GT livery rather. You've had a reissue of their 370Z Heritage Edition. There's going to allegedly and I don't think that Hero Boy is lying about it, but it hasn't been announced by Tamiya officially yet. But there's going to be an RF version of the MX-5, which is that one with the retractable hardtop, coming in 2020 sometime, probably. Maybe it'll come out early before the show, but more likely something is going to get announced around the same time as the Shizuoka show, I'd imagine. And, so that's what? I didn't even count there. It's 7, 8 automotive tools, and 2 or 3 of them have been reissued. So we've been fairly fortunate in the last several years to be getting a lot of automotive tools out of Tamiya for a change. But when kit companies don't announce anything, and Tamiya has been, doesn't announce, but they don't announce until their stuff is ready, right? Supra got announced and it was out, basically less than 90 days later because all the development stuff had been done beforehand. They don't announce 6 months, a year in advance. They announce 45 days in advance, basically. But, Revell, Tamiya in the old days, like, they didn't announce anything. And then you get that, oh, well, they're not going to make anything. Oh, why haven't we heard about something coming out? So they're like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you don't announce, then the speculation goes rampant that you're going out of business, or you're ignoring the automotive market. You're pulling out of the United States entirely. Remember that? Remember about Tamiya back when the paint got pulled because of California's relabeling, and all the spray paint got pulled, and TS13 was gone for an even longer point in time than the actual paint. I just ordered a new bottle, a new one of their acrylic colors called Rubber Black. In addition to the normal California warnings about how it's going to give me cancer, there's a whole nother California warning on the bottom, which isn't going to focus probably, telling me this has carbon black in it. Let's see if it'll go. We got too many model kits over there. It's too shiny. There. Yep. Yeah. There it goes. Yep. See, California once again. Proposition 65, telling me I'm going to kill myself. We're all going to die at some point, California. Get over yourselves. But that all the paint got pulled to relabel it, and of course everybody just, well, Tommy's out of the U.S. market. They're not coming back, and of course that was a huge lie and whatnot. So I don't know. I just find it very interesting. This is sort of riffing off the old idea that hey, go back to the days when Hobby Heaven would produce like 2 big mailer lists. And that was how you found out about model kits. You got a mailer, you sent a self-addressed stamped envelope. Oh, mail, folks, not even email, and you got a list of their products. And on that first list would be all the kits that were coming out, like in the first half of the year and the second half of the year, because there used to be 2 toy shows in the United States, and fun was had by all. Now, of course, if you announce a kit and it doesn't come out on time, everyone loses their mind. If you don't announce a kit, everyone assumes that you aren't going to ever do one again, and they lose their minds. And then you have, of course, the great thing that happens when those 2 things combine, or those 2 things meet, is a company called AMK. Now, they make IPMS stuff, mostly airplanes. And they announced that they were going to do a 1/48 scale F-14 Tomcat. And that project was delayed forever. They missed ship dates. They did pre-orders and missed ship dates. And it got to the point where people didn't believe the kit was going to be made. I've seen a lot of that actually here not too terribly long ago with Revell things, when Revell was coming back from the bankruptcy and everything, where, oh, hey, they're going to be the 68 Chevelle, it's going to be a new tool. Oh, believe it when I see it. Yeah, okay, there was a point in time where some kits didn't get made back in like the 1990s when the hobby was going through a real hard point in time where Racing Champions bought out AMT, and Binney & Smith was buying out Revell, and things were very uncertain. But I can't tell you the last time I've seen a project announced where it wasn't produced at some point. Maybe it wasn't produced right away, maybe it took years to get there, but there was never, I haven't seen one in the last decade at least where somebody announced a project and didn't come through with it. So this airplane was like, oh, that's it, it's over, they're going to go bankrupt, the company's going out of business, they'll never make it. And it was released right before Christmas. And what happened? Well, I'm not buying that kit because it took so long to come out. And I was, I wouldn't buy an airplane kit anyway, so it really didn't affect me. But, like, you wanted this kit so bad that all you did was bitch about the fact that it wasn't available for 2 years. And then when it did release, you refused to buy it. Because you, of course, had no intention of buying it at all. You just wanted to go online and make a lot of noise and try to sound important in forums and Facebook groups. And then you refuse to buy it because it took so long. I've never experienced that. I've experienced plenty of model kits that I've wished to purchase be delayed. The BMW M6 GT3 from Nunu famously was 18 months late. And that had the same thing. Well, it took so long, I'm not going to buy it. What sense does that make? If you wanted it, how do you not still want it? You apparently never wanted it, because if you still wanted it, you'd be even more excited that it finally showed up. You'd be like, after this huge wait and long time, it's finally here, Christmas in July. Not, oh, well, it took too long. I'm not interested. I've seen people that I'm not interested in that kit anymore. Hey, look, we all have our, comings and goings of like what we want to build. That's why a lot of us have these huge stashes, because we see something and in the moment we have a project for it, but by the time we get the thing and finish the project we're working on, and then another project over here, and oh look, there's a show theme that we want to build for, and all these other things, we forgot what the point was we bought the model kit for in the first place. That's understandable, but I've never gotten the slightest inkling in my head to sit around and be like, yeah, I really want this, I really want this. And when it finally showed up, I went, nah, I don't want it. You guys kill me sometimes. See you guys on the other side.